Okay, people, we're in Genesis process 2. What is broken? And this is where we're trying to find out, why do we stagnate? Why do we get stuck? And so the process opens up in page 35, where it's going to talk a little bit and introduce us to our limbic system. There are two parts of your brain, okay? There's there's more than two parts, but for simplicity's sake, you have the part of your brain called the limbic system, and that controls you. That's the part of the brain that goes into automation mode. I mean, it's programmed, it knows what to do, and it just does what it knows what to do. And then there's the other part of your brain, which is your frontal cortex, which puts you in charge of your brain. So your limbic system takes charge of you. Your frontal cortex gives you the ability to take charge of yourself. And the reason why we do the things we don't want to do is because the limbic system is in charge. And so we need to understand how that part of the brain got programmed and how we can begin to reprogram it. You have to understand the limbic system is only concerned with a couple things. One, it's only really interested in what feels good, okay? And what doesn't feel good. And so the system is completely wired by a reward slash punishment type of programming. If you experienced something negative in your past, your limbic system has now been wired to avoid that, whatever that is. So if you had a painful relationship, whatever, doesn't matter. Whatever is painful, you're going to avoid. Whatever made you feel good is what you're going to gravitate toward. Okay, so what we're going to be doing here is asking ourselves a few questions on the workbook section part, which starts on page 36. What do I do when I'm restless? Now, the word is actually anxious in the workbook, but for most of us guys and gals, we don't want to admit that we're afraid. And so what do you do when you're restless? What do you do when you can't settle down? It's really anxiety, but what do you do? Second, what would happen if you didn't do that? Now, a lot of us, when we get anxious, we go to the refrigerator, we get food, or we grab a cigarette and light up, or we maybe drink what we shouldn't, or we get online and go places we shouldn't go. What would happen if I did not self-medicate? All addictions are self-gratification. All addictions are self-medication. Your limbic system has been wired and been trained to, this is what you do to feel good and to avoid pain. Okay? But what if you chose not to do that anymore? What would happen? Think that through. Okay? And then, how is what I'm doing affecting my relationships? In the world of self-gratification, we think, well, what I'm doing in private to self-gratify myself doesn't affect anyone else, but that's just not true. You need to think that through. You need to think that through, okay? What you are doing is not just affecting you. If nothing else, it's keeping you from doing things you should be doing. And how does that affect your relationships? And in view of other things, everything we do makes us who we are, and who we are affects people. Well, then you go on and talking about why. Okay, we're talking about what we do, now we're talking about why we do what we do. And one of the things we need to recognize is that limbic system can get wired real early in life, early childhood. So I need to ask myself the question, do I have a hypervigilant brain? It's the kind of brain that has experienced a lot of pain, and so it's learned to be very sensitive to what's going on around it. Hypervigilant, and so that we can avoid the pain. Or was my childhood more laid back, more low-key, more loving Did I bond and learn to trust? Really easy. Did I receive gratification from having relationships with others? Or were relationships with others painful so that I had to self-gratify? So in order to do that, we need to think through, what is your area of struggle? Okay. Secondly, when did it all start? Now, this is a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about the blame versus understanding. When we talk about our childhood, we're not trying to blame our parents. We're not trying to blame our mother. It seems like mom is the one that catches all the crap from this stuff. But this isn't about blaming anybody. This is about understanding your past. Because nobody got a perfect past. Nobody did. And so you've got to give your mother a pass on a lot of this stuff. She didn't have a perfect past either. Okay? So understand, though, how that formed you. There were some good things she did. There were probably some not so good things that she did. Okay. We need to understand, though, where did it start? And then 3, how has your struggle affected your relationships? Okay. How has your struggle affected your relationships? I mean, just think that through. And then when we go to our commitment to change, you just need to think through, okay, how am I self-gratifying? What must change? For that to stop, what must change? What's going on? And then secondly, who around me can help? Because remember, all addiction is self-gratification. All recovery is learning to trust again. And if you don't build relationships, you're not going to learn how to trust. I hope this is helpful in getting you started on this week's process. God bless you, and keep up the good work.